welcome to the Royal Geek Podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Rollison, also known as T-Roll, and tonight I am joined once again by my very good friends. First of all, we have Justin Sandoval, a.k.a. Sandy. We also have Anthony Amato. We'd like to call him Shamato. And of course, we got my man Applezax, Zach Markham in the building as well. Gentlemen, we are here to review Andor, episode number 6. Wish I knew what it was called. Oh, it's called The Eye. That's right, The Eye. Yeah. I knew that. I knew it the whole time. Just tricked everybody.
But he was a double agent.
Yeah, very fitting. Before we get into the review, just want to say big thanks to all of our listeners, all of our viewers. Please subscribe on YouTube. Please subscribe and listen. Continue to listen on Apple, Spotify, Google, and leave us a review. Leave us a comment. All of that helps us out a lot. Follow us on social media at Royal Geek Pod. That's also very helpful. Get to know, everything that we got going on. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter and TikTok. We'll do our best to keep you up to date, especially on Instagram with everything we got going on. So please follow us. But yeah, boys, before we get into Andor, how y'all doing?
Yeah, great. I will say it's glad to be back. Even though I was at the beach last week.
That's right, you missed out, man.
I know. I missed out, but you know what? I'm happy to be here right now, and I'm looking forward to talking about probably one of the most intense episodes in the last few months of television.
Yeah, it just goes to show you how much better it is to have a 12-episode season than a 6 or 8 episode season, as some of these other shows are trying to do. Just because of the fact that we were able to get basically 2 episodes of build up to this heist, and then an entire episode completely encompassing the heist. There was maybe 5 minutes of the entire episode that was not the heist.
And we are literally, it feels almost like we've hit a climax of this show, and we're halfway through.
Yeah, yes. Halfway.
It's a great feeling.
It's a great feeling. And I do appreciate the 12 episode seasons now because Marvel has dropped the ball so many times on their 6 episodes. And this right here is them being hey, I see our mistakes. This is Disney talking, by the way. I see our mistakes with the 6 episodes. Here's the 12. Enjoy all the character building in Andor, and all of the first 3 episodes was one arc, and then now here they are in the second arc. They've reached the climax of that, and we may be coming down to the tail end, the next episode of this second arc, and then we're going to move on to the third arc. How great is that? That's incredible.
Yep. And I feel what they're doing as far as the character buildup is fantastic. They have a lot of more time to add these meaningful conversations that they're having in between characters.
Yeah.
And you really get to see how the characters are feeling and going through things mentally, their doubt, their fear, their anger, all that kind of stuff. They're adding that stuff in, and it does take more time, but we have the episodes to do it now, so you have a lot of better chemistry with the characters versus in the past.
Yeah, I feel obviously it's an Andor series, so we're focusing on Cassian. We're focusing on him quite a bit, but I do feel from Rogue One and where his character status was, I truly feel the build up to get there, we are getting more of the character, and I am feeling more of a connection than I ever thought I would with this character because of the way the format is for this show, and the fact that we're able to build up to where he's going to end up, and they're doing a lot of good key points and making decisions on his character progression that I'm thoroughly loving, actually. So
yeah, you're seeing all these elements of who he is as a character, and you're seeing them build up and starting to fill in. Where there were these blanks in his character coming up to this point, you're seeing moments that are creating and describing and showing you why he was this way in Rogue One.
Yeah, it feels like a good slow burn for his. We shouldn't give anything away. Maybe a good time right now to say spoiler alert for this review of episode 6. Everyone's been warned. But yeah, even in this episode, he's not sold out to the cause yet.
No,
even after everything he just experienced.
Although there were some moments where I believe that he was.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's. But here's the thing: it gives a lot question marks like this bring a lot of intrigue to a fan base.
Yes.
Right?
Yes,
so it's I love that it wasn't as simple as successful mission, even though they lost a lot of people. But
oh my god,
right, successful mission. We got the credits. Now I'm in on the rebellion, and Luthen's gonna love me. And it's like, no, there's so much more to be told, and I'm so excited about that.
Yeah, it really is a situation where, I think Justin, you were really right in the sense of, it's almost like in parts he's fighting against his own thoughts on how he wants to be a part of the rebellion. I think in a lot of ways he's feeling drawn to it, but he doesn't want to admit that he's drawn to it. I think because the way his character is played out and been such a solo character in the way that he's grown up, and he's always kind of felt isolated, even though he's had people around him and he's worked and he's kind of had a family in a way. But I feel like a lot of it is he's done so much of this stuff on his own, and he's always had to figure out everything on his own. So the idea of being in a group of larger people is scary to him in a lot of ways, and he doesn't want to admit that he needs people or that other people might need him. I think that might be scary in his own right. Is that he doesn't quite want to admit that other people might need him, because if other people need him, then he can let down people, and then they can get put into situations where they're getting hurt. I don't think he doesn't want to open that door for either him to get hurt or other people to get hurt because they're giving in to him.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I believe the flashbacks to him as a child and dealing with his sister in the first 3 episodes, like, for example, they seemed like a very tight group of children, and the sister was the one leading the way, and the mission went kind of south, and therefore causing him to be separated and become solo from his group. I feel like he feels that because he's involved with his group, he can't be connected to it, because if he is connected to it, then it's only going to cause him harm in the end, because something's going to happen to where he and his connection to the group is going to be soured because of his previous experiences that we've seen through flashbacks.
It's kind of like if you've had a really bad relationship, and then even though you may get out of that relationship, but getting into any other relationship now becomes super hard. And when you get into it, you become your own worst enemy in a lot of ways.
You become a saboteur. You're speaking from experience? No, I was kidding.
Maybe. you become a saboteur sometimes of yourself in that sense of
correct, yeah.
Because you don't want to open yourself up to that, type of experience again.
Right, and I can definitely see that is definitely playing out with his interactions with these characters, which I'm still having a hard time with the names of all these characters, to be honest with you.
I'm ready.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
You're ready. Especially...
We got Vel.
Yeah, good.
Cinta.
Okay, good.
Skeen.
Is it Skeen or Shreen?
No, it's Skeen.
Okay,
definitely Skeen.
Okay, yeah.
Skeen, yes.
Nemec.
Okay. Yep, Nemec. Good,
okay,
great job.
The black guy, his name was, is it Taramin or Tamarin?
I thought it was Tamarin.
I think it's Taramin. I think it's Taramin.
Yeah, T-A-R, right?
Yeah, T-A-R.
Okay, yes. All right, so my first one was right. Taramin.
Okay.
And then Gorn.
Which one's Gorn?
He's a lieutenant.
He's the lieutenant. He's the
Oh,
double agent.
yeah. I was lieutenant.
dude.
I always thought lieutenant.
Step
that's
up,
all.
bro.
Lieutenant. Okay.
Back up, man.
All right, Mr. Wants to be a Star Wars fan?
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah,
I'm a big fanboy now.
Nice.
You're welcome. Yeah.
What does Markham think of this episode? He hasn't really said much
Please,
yet.
Markham, please.
I enjoyed it. I feel like this has been the most intense episode.
For real, yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, it was the most.
You could
intense
say that
episode,
again.
But it had a lot of similarities with A New Hope and everything. I'm really trying to figure out how they're trying to portray Cassian's character. We got a pretty good description of him in Rogue One, obviously, but I'm trying to see what kind of backgrounds they're trying to push him into. So he definitely seems like the type of guy that's going to avoid danger altogether, and he's very similar to Han in my opinion. But the only difference is he's going to be more cold-blooded. So he's going to avoid danger altogether. So he's going to be a shoot first type of guy.
He's going to straight up murder somebody if he suspects something.
So you're saying he's more pre-Lucas rewrite Han Solo.
Yes. So, with the whole pre-Lucas thing is George Lucas didn't want Han Solo to be portrayed as a cold-blooded killer versus someone with a heroic standpoints, self-defense type of guy. Cassian is that cold-blooded killer.
Yes.
So, he's going to do whatever's necessary, and we got to see that in this episode.
Are you saying that Han shot first?
Absolutely.
Yes, OG.
And
he
the
did.
Curtis,
solo,
if you're watching, I know you're smiling.
the solo story actually confirms that, to be honest with you, because he shoots Woody Harrelson's character first, but he's the one who pulls the trigger. So that confirms it, by the way. Yep. But I will say, yes, I am digging the solo vibes with Cassian.
Yep.
One of the things that really stood out to me was when he and Skeen were having the conversation after the heist. I don't know if I want to jump past the heist right now. Should I wait?
No, that's okay. I mean, because honestly, maybe it's good to talk about the ramifications of the heist, and then we could talk about the intensity of it.
My
right? So
goodness,
we can we can start with the end, maybe.
Yeah. So Skeen is like throwing the scenario of, let's just leave her. You and I will split this money, and we'll become rich.
Which not a bad argument.
It's not. It really isn't.
It's not. But like the entire time, you knew. Like I think everybody knew. Like even Cassian knew. Like Skeen was going to turn. Like there's no way that even if if Cassian would to agree to it, he was never going to get his cut of the credits. Skeen would have killed him and like.
As soon as they landed where he needed them to land,
he would have. Yeah. But the thing is, the story that Skeen sold him about his brother being the farmer and committing suicide, that whole thing, like the manipulation there was, honestly, I get why he did that, because he was trying to form that bond. However, I will say, if he was in the same boat as Cassian, as far as Cassian's a hired hand, right? He wasn't in it for the cause, but then he's over here selling the cause, but he's not really in it for the cause either. Why not just form that bond based on, I'm here because I want to make money? Like I don't know. I was a little.
You needed to save face in front of everybody else.
Okay. I have a speculation on that.
Okay, please.
You know, with Skeen, with already being that mindset, I feel like he was paranoid the entire time that he was going to get figured out. So he had.
That's why he drew attention to.
He had to.
Andor?
He had to draw attention to Andor and make Andor out to be like the one who's going to turn.
Okay,
take attention off of himself.
I like that.
And he had like the most extreme story, kind of more than everyone really. Like his was like the most intense. Yep. I think it also his story was kind of to test the other people as well, to see where they were at. Yeah. And like I think that's why he was pushing Andor, to see how Andor would react when he had that story.
It's funny, like, because it's not funny, but he mentioned suicide in his story, right? Like most of the time now, whenever you watch a show or anything dealing with suicide, you always get that warning beforehand, like, warning may contain content that's sensitive to certain viewers.
If they show it.
If they show it, right? Now, or if they have intense dialogue about it, like intense dialogue. So he's using that because that always has an effect on people in general when you mention suicide and things like that. So he's already making people feel a certain way by mentioning that. So he's kind of like shaping their mindset of him, so he can get away with.
You're saying he's manipulative?
Yes, that's what. Yes.
Well, and that maybe that was the only way he felt like he could get into this crew, like into this group. Like he felt like he had to come up with a story, and he had to have, like I was saying, the most intense story. That way, it's almost to the point of like nobody wants to question further, because it's such a sore spot for something like that to happen to someone. So you don't want to be that person that's like digging into, like
picking on the suicide guy. That's what you're talking about?
Yeah, like but that's the way to do. Like you have that super intense story, and then nobody tries to unravel it. Because it is so intense in its own right that it is almost like so ineffective or it turns out to be bad. If you're the person that's digging at somebody else's story, like the worst, like, yes, you might find out something about that person. You may find out, oh, maybe this story is completely made up, but you're also very likely to alienate yourself from the rest of the group if you're calling out this person who has that such an intense story.
So interestingly, with Skeen, like, there's a part of me that wants to say, okay, well, maybe he just decided to tell that to Cassian because there was only 3 people left. He saw the writing on the wall with Nemec. He knows he's not going to make it. Let's just leave them. Let's split it. But as I thought about that more, I'm pretty sure that, is it, again, Taramyn or Taramyn?
Yes.
Taramyn. He pretty much dies because Skeen didn't provide cover the entire time he ran out.
Oh,
did you guys notice that?
When he said,
Did you
cover
guys
me.
notice that?
Yeah, no, I did. When he said cover me, and then he shot like 4 times,
And
and,
then
I was
stopped.
like, whoa. When you
just
cover
killed his-
when you cover somebody, you literally like you
Lay down
you are
suppressing
laying
fire.
down suppressing fire that is unmatched.
That right there shows that he always had the intent of. I think he always had the intent of
own
lowering
betrayal.
His own
lowering the
self-interest.
numbers.
Yeah.
Lowering the numbers of
lowering the
of
numbers, and he might have. I'm trying to think, and maybe that's why stopping at the doctor would give a chance to like win Cassian over.
Did he push the doctor
Yeah.
issue? He did, right? He was
did.
the one who
push the
said-
doctor issue.
It was a
did.
contingency plan, right? He said there's a doctor in the contingency plan, right? That's what he
Yes.
said?
Yep.
Yeah, but in fairness, I don't think he necessarily. He wasn't talking about killing them. Like he was even saying, like let's just leave them.
Correct.
So I don't think he was necessarily like being malicious, like wanting them to die.
But here's the thing, like Vel was not about like she didn't want to go to the doctor.
Well, I think what it was the contingency plan gave them a place where he could break off from. She wanted to go
think that's
straight
right.
to
The rendezvous point?
The rendezvous point. So, and who knows how many people are at the rendezvous point. So, if there
there
is
you
a
go.
stop,
That's it right there.
Yeah, like that's
Gives
what
him
it
a
is.
window.
It gives him a window to where now he's only up against 2 people potentially, and plus the doctor, or he's up against a countless number of rebels wherever they end up.
okay, I have an important question that maybe all of you can answer, but hopefully Markham can at least.
Okay. I'll try.
He said there's roughly 80 million. Now these are Imperial units or
Credits.
credits, excuse me, on the ship. Okay, so 80 million always sounds like a lot, but like just how much is as a guy who doesn't watch Star Wars very much, who's not deep in the lore, how much is that?
Okay, so think about it this way. So when he had the Kyber crystal, remember he said,
Like 50,000.
"Don't take."
30,000.
Oh, okay. No,
Don't take less
it
than
was
50.
The way Luthen said, "Don't take less than 50."
50, right.
When they were actually dealing with it, they said 30.
Correct.
So.
Yeah.
Think about it that way. They're talking about something that is so expensive that it is almost like a down payment on his life. Something
Well-
where he could probably get away with with almost just that.
Okay, but like, how much would like a transport from one planet to another cost in credits? Because I need to know like a real day expense. How much? You know what I'm saying? I need to know this, guys, because I need to know just.
So-
I know 40 million or 80 million split 2 ways is definitely a lot of credits.
It's a lot, yeah.
But I need to know exactly what kind of
Listen,
life they're going to be living.
So the best way I could describe it, I guess,
Please.
is so they had 80 million. It was 80 million credits, right?
Yes.
So that I know they said that was a quarter's worth of pay for the Imperial.
Yes.
So from a business standpoint, if you're thinking of like 80 million and like you just go into like payroll, like I don't know how many like Imperial, units or people or whoever that they have to, pay out. But I would guess that you can liken it to U.S. currency.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's what I was hoping.
I was going to probably suggest like a 1-to-1 ratio with the current U.S. dollar.
Correct, yeah.
For some reason, I thought that Luthen said, or the gentleman on the train transport from wherever they were to the city that Luthen was being introduced to. For some reason, I thought he said 800 credits to get to the transport. That's what I thought
that's
he
what I'm
said.
saying. I feel like I've heard somewhere around like a few hundred, anywhere from 2 to 8. Again, I'm just trying to put it into perspective for me because holy crap, that's a ton.
This is America, and we're going to assume that it's
Look,
the American dollar.
look,
That's
man,
what I'm
and-
assuming.
And there's a lot to play in that. Like, so if it's 800 credits, is that round trip? Is that coach? Is
Well,
Definitely
is that first
coach
class?
because he
Again,
was being harassed by the
So
casual
much of the
citizen.
Star Wars universe takes place in places like whatever planet he was on at the beginning of the show, where everything seems so poor, with the exception of like very rich planets with like rich senators, right?
Yeah.
Right,
So
yeah.
it's like
Correct.
for a guy like Skeen and Cassian, I'm just again assuming that they did that. For them to walk away with 40 million each, like, yo, that is game changing. That's life changing.
Yes.
Correct.
So
yeah.
I'm sure it was enticing.
But
Yeah.
here's the thing about this whole heist and what I'm curious to see what's going to happen in the next in the future episodes of the season and everything. So Cassian got his credits, and he went about his business, right?
Which was only what, 200,000? That's what Luthen promised him, right?
Yeah, 200,000.
So do you think that's all he took?
I would believe so.
Make a call right now.
He's a man of his word.
Yep.
Yeah, I think I think even to the point to where he would make an effort to be down to the penny on that, because I think largely what he was trying to do in this situation was to kind of prove to himself and to them that he was not the bad guy in this situation.
He doesn't want any trouble.
Yeah,
Correct.
He doesn't want any trouble. Like, I think it's another way pointing at him saying that Skeen was 100% in the wrong in this.
Yeah.
Because I think even up to this point, like even what he, with him knocking him off, it was, there probably is still a little bit of leeway in the situation of like, well, who was really the... in the right in this situation. So I think by only taking the exact amount that he was supposed to get, he is saying, I'm done with this job. I am taking my bit and going, but I am not taking a step over the line. I did what I needed to do, but I am not the bad guy in this situation.
Yeah.
Correct.
So, Markham, I interrupted you.
No, you're fine.
Keep going.
So 200,000 credits or 40 million credits. At this point, I don't think it matters. Because now, like, he's public enemy number one, so
That's
like
true.
his face is going to be recognized with this group, and this is going to be like the first like major attack against the Empire, and the Empire is not going to let 80 million credits go.
No.
Which,
once again, I don't think the money doesn't matter to them in this situation. I don't think.
Right. It's not. It's like a pride thing. I don't know.
No,
I
think it's about establishing the rebellion. I think that's what it's about.
Yeah.
It's not about the money. It's about making a statement about the rebellion, which we see play out in the end of the episode when she's giving her speech at the Senate, and everybody's being distracted by the news that something has happened, and then they dive deeper into that.
In fairness, I get what you guys are saying. Like, it's more about the pride of we are the Empire. This doesn't happen to us.
Right. Yeah.
However, as an American, I can tell you I've learned that if you really want to upset some really rich people, you go at their pocketbooks.
Correct.
Yep.
Yes.
And that's exactly what they did.
They did that. They hindered them because the entire quarter of payroll
For an entire sector.
Yeah, has been taken from the Imperial.
And even that, it wasn't even a meeting. He even said, don't get comfortable. This isn't a meeting. It was a briefing, right?
Yes.
They're all in that room.
Yeah.
He says, tell your families you're working overtime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, they're like, we are, all resources go on fixing this.
And you know what? I've been there on that, in that type
For
of
the
meeting.
Empire?
For the, literally, currently feels
the
like the
Empire?
Empire. Yes. In my current job, and Markham can relate because we're in the same business, we have been in that same exact.
We'll just keep it there. Just
Yeah.
nice and vague.
Yeah, exactly.
don't know, man. I don't know how I feel about working for the Empire now. I don't even.
You've known for a long time.
But tell me,
Search
tell me you
your
could not relate to
feelings.
that, right? Like,
You
hey,
know them to be true.
Call your families. Tell them you're not coming home. We are working here until.
That's straight up Empire,
Trust me,
dude.
I know. Trust
Yeah.
me.
Okay.
I felt that. I did.
I want to talk one more thing about the ramifications, because we still haven't even talked about the heist, and look how long we've been going.
So intense.
Oh, we're talking about going 30 minutes, and we're not even going to come close. Okay, let's just talk about the incredible scene with Luthen at the end,
Oh yeah.
and then we'll finally get to the actual intense heist. Okay, so Luthen's at his shop. Somebody asks for if he has anything from Aldani, and at first he's like,
He perks up, right?
yeah,
Like, he's
because,
like,
dude, I was like, dude, is this somebody from the Empire that knows he's connected?
Yeah.
I was nervous.
I felt like he knew that too.
Yeah,
I
that's
felt
what
like
he
that
was thinking?
Yeah, I felt like that's
was
what he was
nervous.
thinking, and like he kind of broke character a little bit.
He did.
and then went
Yes.
back into it. So
Totally.
Good catch, Markham.
Totally.
Good
I
catch.
totally agree. And then
Yeah.
and then he was just so relieved. And that scene was awesome.
Oh man, especially so. Obviously, when we first got wind of him putting on the wig, and he like twists his hand and becomes that like the seller, right?
Yes.
And then we see at the end, we see that he goes in the back room. Let me check on that for you. He goes back to see if he has anything from Aldani, and then he does the laugh, the shout, the fist pump. Like, I mean, it wasn't really a fist pump, but in my mind, I gathered it was a fist pump.
It was kind of like a fist
Yeah,
bump.
it was, and you really see the ramifications of the heist and what it did. It started the chatter. It began in the Senate when they were all talking about
that was
when they were
awesome.
watching their
Yeah.
tablets, their iPads, whatever you want to call them. And then she stops her speech, looks at it, and then it carries over as if it was a viral video or a viral news
Yeah.
clipping with a guy mentioning about Aldani. It was incredible.
And this was like the actual first time that you get to see like see news popping off. Because, before, like in movies and, shows and stuff like that, Disney has done for Star Wars, like you don't really see like, I guess what we can see during communication during like modern time.
Yeah.
So, right now, like the Empire has no like control over like whatever media that they have. Yeah. And so, like, media is popping off.
They're not in charge of the printing press, right?
Correct.
Like,
Correct. So, like everybody knows. So, like, this hit everybody, not just Imperial, but like senators that's like donating money, all this stuff.
Yeah, in which I've really enjoyed the slow burn of the political aspect of the non-Jedi Star Wars stuff that's going on. I've really enjoyed that, and you really see that come into play here when the Senate is involved with the acts of the rebellion, and Luthen and his joyous laughter that he has in the back room by himself. You really do see the ramifications of what happens and what transpires after the events of the rebellion act of stealing the payroll money.
Totally.
Yep.
All right, so we started this pod by talking about the ending of this episode, essentially, which was epic. Let's now actually talk about the actual heist. So instead of going through it, chronologically through it, it would take forever, and we want to be somewhat respectful of our time here. Why don't we just talk about the highlights, which were a lot, but like the things that really got us going. And let me start by saying this.
Okay.
I'm watching this episode. I'm also simultaneously warming up a frozen chicken chorizo burrito in my oven.
That's it.
And you guys see, it was in this room, right?
Yeah.
I'm watching on this TV. I'm standing. I'm not sitting. I only sat for a few minutes of this entire episode.
It was hard.
I was standing, pacing around my living room, right? Multiple times I'm pausing. Yes, I will admit, to walk into the kitchen to check on my frozen burrito that's in the oven. But there are also times where I'm pausing and I'm thinking, what the heck is happening right now? And I'm so stressed.
Yeah.
So I'll just start there, but I'll let you guys talk about the details.
So I'm gonna go ahead and like throw a curveball as far as what I thought was some of the most intense highlights, and it was them being incorporated into the march of them being escorts. So they're randomly on this hill because they know they're coming through, and they're standing there.
They know that the locals are coming through.
Yes, they know the locals are coming through, and then they just start marching behind them.
And the locals never think anything of it.
They don't think anything of it, and like they don't even flinch. And then they come up to this next checkpoint, and there's other troopers there. There's other members of the Imperial Guard. They're there, and they're at the rear, and you can see them give them a look like, where these guys come from, that kind of thing, right? Uh-huh. And then they move forward into the shrine or whatever the heck the whatever the event is.
Stonehenge.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah.
And then the lieutenant comes in and he's talking about teams 1, 2, 3, 4, and he says, "Team 3, you're coming with me," which he knows is the team that's working with him, but. Just the fact that they had to blend in, and the conversations that they're having, like, oh, they're not there yet. Like, hey, Valley One, like, this is like, come in. Like, I thought that was truly intense because you were thinking like, okay, how are they going to synchronize when they're behind? And the only reason they were behind is because the Val and Cinta were interrupted by the random guard that came past there where they were located. But I thought that them getting to the point of entering the barracks was very intense, and I thoroughly enjoyed that buildup of getting there, especially when, hey, are you going to call it? Are you going to call it? Are we going to do this? Like, we're here. Are we in set? When Val and Cinta were talking to each other, like, are we going to move forward with the mission? And Val had so much hesitation. That built for me, and it sold it for me. And I was like, man, like I said, you were standing. I was standing as well. And I'm literally just sitting there in my living room by myself watching. And it was incredible, that build up.
Yeah, and I think part of it was the fact that I think we all knew that it was going to fail to some extent.
Correct.
Like, something was going to go wrong.
There was going to be a hiccup.
Like, it wasn't like we weren't thinking like this was going to be like Ocean's 11, where like they get off scot-free, everybody gets out, no one gets hurt, the money's gone, but really both sides are no worse for the wear. We knew that something was going to go wrong. That something on the even though we had never heard of this heist in our lives. In our Star Wars knowledge, we knew that something was going to happen here to where somebody was going to get knocked off, something was going to go wrong. There's going to be a moment of, somebody's going to have to make a decision that was going to be harder than we thought it was. So the whole time you're seeing these little moments of where they are in a situation where they're unsure. Like when Vel wasn't sure where they were going to go, their timing was off. You knew that stuff was going to happen, but you're like, what moment is going to actually be the moment that's going to be the big moment? Because there was all these little moments where there was a lot of red herrings to where, this is where it's going to go off the rail, but then it works for a little bit longer. Well, this is going to be where it goes off the rails, but then it's a little bit longer.
Which comes down to great directing.
Yes.
Yeah, correct. Very much so. Very much so.
And just showing you these moments of just there's all these moments of stress, and you're just seeing these little things go, whether they're going to be work. Because, like I said, you just know that something is going to go wrong at some point.
And ultimately, the thing that did go wrong was the fact that they didn't account for essentially one of the guys staying up in the tower.
In the tower, yes.
Still listening in on communication.
I verbally said, literally sitting in a room by myself, how did they let that happen?
Well, Vel and Cinta are on that bridge. Why didn't they just go take him out?
Yeah.
They should have known that he was in there.
How could they let the radio frequency sink?
We know that they knew that he was in there because when Vel is standing, Cinta says, "Get down," because he's only a frisbee throw away.
Yeah, correct.
You know what I'm saying? So it's they could have just taken him out. So it's I felt like that was a flaw on their end for sure.
They messed up. They didn't calculate for everything, and it was clear. But
at the same time, they also did great.
They did.
Yeah.
Right.
They almost had flawless execution, except for the radio frequency. That whole scene that they had with the tower picking up their frequency. I was like, there's no way this should have been this should have been accounted for. This should have been
somebody.
Them,
even Gorn going up on the bridge, somebody should have been.
Yeah, something should not have happened. And I said, I said this in a room by myself. How could you let that happen? I literally did.
All right, Markham, as our Star Wars expert, what are the things that highlights for you about this incredible heist?
For me, it was right there at the end, where like you guys said, there's been all these small things that could have gone wrong. Or building up the tension, but whenever I was watching this, I was expecting all that kind of stuff. So it wasn't as intense for me. It was right when they got to the end, where those guards came in, they're asking questions. You see that, that Imperial official, right there, he's not looking great, and that's when everything was coming to a climax of everything's going wrong.
Gorn's there trying to say, this is a top secret mission.
Correct. Yeah, they're trying to cover it up. They're trying to cover up the
cracks. So hard,
but they've been made, and so now I'm all right. Now it's going to be a shootout. So, and that's exactly what it was. And from then, going on for the rest of the season is whenever I was gripped, glued to the screen.
Yeah. It was a galaxy version of the shootout at the OK Corral. That's literally what it was.
Yeah. Yeah, you're exactly right.
And the Imperials had the high ground there too.
Correct. So. They did. Yeah. So everything was going against them.
Good shout.
But they lost a couple, due to, the heroism of the rebellion.
Tarman, he was.
Yeah,
Tarman.
Yep. We're having a hard time with his name.
I know we are. Yep. He was one of the first ones to go.
He was the first.
Yep.
Okay,
I think. Okay, unless what happened to Gorn? I really can't remember.
I think Gorn was first.
Did Gorn die?
Yeah, Gorn got shot
first.
Yeah, Gorn got shot first because he was the first person to get shot. He was the very first person to get shot.
Okay, but in fairness, they put a camera on Terramin at least 4 times to where I know for a fact he was dead. I don't remember seeing Gorn's dead body.
I don't think Gorn he may have not been dead.
He was shot.
He was shot.
Yeah,
he was shot.
Okay,
he was shot first.
If he was here's the thing: if he's not dead, he is screwed.
Yes.
Oh, for sure.
Because all of the guards that survive that know that he is the double agent.
Correct.
He is so screwed.
Yep. He's done for.
Yeah. Anybody left behind, they are fully screwed.
You got to be on that ship.
Yeah, they're going to get tortured pretty hard.
Yeah.
But to be honest with you, I thought they were going to have the most of their trouble was going to be once they finally got into the sky. Well, once they started showing the TIE wings and everything.
Yeah, the TIE fighters.
The TIE fighters getting ready to be launched and everything. They had the Imperial pilots. I'm okay, they're not going to be able to make it out in time or get to the horizon quick enough before those TIE fighters zone in.
Yeah.
But it was because of Cassian being able to, maneuver so well blindly at that for for a little bit.
Yeah.
That he was able to save the ship that they were on.
Nemec,
So you mentioned Nemec. Let's talk about him for a second. They're on the ship and they're essentially getting away, and then because they don't secure a cart, it literally crushes him.
How heartbreaking, dude.
How crazy was that?
Like, he didn't die by the hands of like a stormtrooper and an Imperial officer.
He survived the shootout.
Right,
he survived the shootout.
He died in the escape. How heartbreaking!
Craziness, and it paralyzed him. He said he couldn't feel, but whatever the contraption he was using, the little digital whatever, right? He was like, "Go up now!" Like he guided Andor, and it was pretty incredible to see the fact that this guy who was just crushed minutes before is hanging on by a thread, guiding Andor through this meteor shower or whatever this spectacle is that the locals are watching. This planet has going on. Like, I still couldn't even gather what the heck was going on. It looked beautiful. Visually, it looks beautiful.
Yeah, I think with that scene and everything just goes to show you like how much time that they prepared for this heist, but at the same time, like they spent all that time preparing, but all the stuff that they did not take into consideration of, or it could have just been simple mistakes that they made. Because I mean, put yourself in their shoes. Like the adrenaline had to been pumping the entire time, so they're making like mistakes based off stress or like fears, stuff like that. So they're overlooking things. The guard in the tower securing that cart. The biggest thing that they're thinking about is getting out alive and getting like to their destination. Like this is their first like major attack.
Yeah, that's true. You're right.
So like I said, man, adrenaline was pumping everything, and like they just made very drastic but common mistakes.
Well, and I think it's part of the idea of show like they're not like hardened, like they're not. Like they're amateurs still in a lot of ways. Like in the fact that they missed that, and even when they were taking off, and Andor was being pretty hard and being like, "You got to get me these coordinates," but they were like, "No,
yeah,
like
I
Nemec,
need them.
No, hold on, Nemec needs this." But if you're really thinking about the situation, if you were like hardened and really into this, you have to get out of there. Like it's kind of cold blooded, but the idea of like dealing with the Nemec situation was like secondary. If they get shot out of the sky, it doesn't matter whether
then we're all dead, not just Nemec.
Yes. So it's kind of that idea of they were focusing kind of on the wrong thing in a lot of ways.
Correct.
Where if they were really hardened, like Andor is in a lot of ways, then they would have held off.
And are we under the assumption that this was kind of the first act of the rebellion? Is that what the assumption is? I that's what I gathered. I gathered that this was the big first chunk that the rebellion is taking out of the Empire. That's what I gathered. And if that's the case, like you mentioned that their focus is in the wrong area, right?
Yeah.
So is this going to kind of correct that mindset of Nemec's spine being injured? They're learning that he passes away, but like moving forward in any other mission, is the mission the main purpose? Like is that the transition that we're going to lead to believe here?
I think the whole thing is like with Nemec's personality is that I feel like he was too good. Like his morals were too good, and like he was too much like focused on the fact that the reason he was doing things for the rebellion. But I feel like they really looked at the truth in this, and like usually people like that, from as far as what they portrayed, they're not going to last that long in the rebellion.
Yeah.
And then when you see like Rogue One and the rebellion that's fighting alongside Saw Gerrera, they're like mercenaries. Like they're cold-blooded killers. So I feel like at this point, like with the rebellion, the way it's being portrayed is that they're going to need, at least to start up, is people like Cassian and all that, people like that to execute the missions and execute what needs to get done until they get started.
Interesting. Okay. Well, Man, it was an intense episode. It really was. And I was on the edge of my seat the entire time. I was standing majority of the time as well, T-Roll. And I'm very excited to see where the rest of the season goes, because the funny thing is this is the halfway mark, right? This is episode 6, right?
Yeah.
This is the halfway mark. And I feel like we're diving into a character that we didn't really care for at the start of this. Like when the Andor series was announced, we were like, okay, Andor, the Rogue One character, like, sure, it was a good movie, but like, did he really deserve his own show, right? And here we are, and I am fully involved in this character and whatever happens next. And it's going to be interesting to see what they decide to do with his character and where he goes from here, because he's dealt with a lot. We've as viewers have dealt with a lot with the Andor character. So what are we going to do? What are we going to see coming forward?
A lot to come. I think we've talked a lot. We've literally gone 10 minutes over than we said we were going to. So why don't we cut it short? But listen, thank you for everybody who's listening. Come back next week, episode 7. We're going to review it. It's been an epic show so far, epic heist. Can't wait to see what happens. Please follow us on social media. Please subscribe wherever you listen. And again, come on back. We can't wait to have you once again. With all that in mind, for my good friends Sandy, Shamato, and Apple's Axe, this is T-Roll saying thank you so much for listening to the Royal Geek Podcast. We will see you next time, you peasants.